Welcome to the deep dive. So today we're not looking at the big picture maps, the grand strategies of World War II. No, we're plunging headfirst into something much more immediate, much more visceral. We're going down to ground level, the Battle of Stalingrad, right? That absolute turning point, but seen through the eyes of just one Soviet soldier, experienced not as history, but as, well, the sources called it an inferno filled with hell. Our mission here for you listening is to really get past those grand narratives. So we want to focus purely on the raw, the sensory experience of just surviving in those ruins. We're drawing this straight from some incredibly powerful personal accounts we've looked at, trying to understand what it cost emotionally, physically to hold what they call the last wall.
And right away, those sources, they tell the story of just violent de-individualization. You were maybe 18, 19 years old. You could have been, I don't know, tending goats one week, working in a factory, and then suddenly there's a piece of paper. Urgent conscription. That's it. You're shoved into a uniform, probably ill-fitting, too big, a thin coat, but usually, and this is key, no rifle, not yet. And immediately, you're part of the 62nd Army. Under General Vasily Chukov, they called him Gravel Throat. His orders were known to be, well, absolutely brutal.
Okay, let's talk about that journey east first. The accounts describe this train ride. Cold, rattling metal moving across this huge gray landscape of Russia. You're passing places like Kaluga, Smolensk, Tula, just names on a map sliding past the window. Each one feeling further from normal life, closer to the violence waiting. Inside the train car, it's described as humid, smelling of damp wool, maybe cheap tobacco, those little gas stoves people carried, but mostly silent, nobody really speaking.
Because what is there to say? They knew where they were going, or had a grim idea anyway. And what really stands out is the psychological hit when they arrive. Near Bekatuvuka, still a way off from the city itself, a political officer gets on the truck. He's described as being unnervingly clean, compared to everything else. He hands out some pamphlets about duty, the usual stuff. But then he gives this speech, and it culminates in this one line. Now you are the wall. The last wall.
Wow.
Yeah. The implication is just chillingly clear. The Soviet Union has nothing left to throw at the Germans except you, your body.
That idea that you're the final, completely expendable resource, that's terrifying. And then they actually have to cross the Volga River. Getting down to the ferry point at Krasnaya Sloboda happens at night, naturally. On these open barges, German searchlights sweeping the water, machine gun fire cracking overhead. One source remembers the moon hiding behind clouds, saying it was as if it didn't want to see what was approaching.
A poetic touch in all that horror.
And the first glimpse of Stalingrad itself. It's not buildings, it's just this massive silhouette against the sky. Smoke and flames. But described as burning without heat. A cold fire.
That image, burning but no heat, it sets the stage perfectly for Chukov's whole approach, his doctrine. Once you land, you get why he had that nickname. He completely did away with traditional defensive lines. He insisted, ordered, that the 62nd Army would fight for, quote, every building, every floor, every stairwell.
So no open fields, no distance.
None. It was zero-sum. Close quarters. The enemy wasn't miles away. They were feet away, maybe through a wall, maybe on the next floor up.
Which brings us right to probably the most famous example of this, Pavlov's house. You, as this soldier, you're assigned to reinforce this position. It's a shattered 4-story apartment block. Looks like any other ruin, really.
But strategically, it's crucial. It overlooks a key street, a square. The Germans had to take it to advance.
And we know Sergeant Yakov Pavlov and his small group held it. For 60 days. 60 days, and that one wreck of a building became this huge symbol.
And the sheer scarcity of everything just hammers home how desperate Chukov's strategy was. When you, the new recruit, finally get there and ask, where's my rifle? The answer is just, find one.
Find one. Like off a dead body.
Exactly. Weapons weren't issued like socks. They were a battlefield commodity, shared between the living and the dead. This led directly to what one soldier bluntly called the first rule of survival. It went like this: the one with the rifle shoots, the one with the bullets follows him. If the man with the rifle falls, the man with the bullets immediately picks up the rifle and keeps going.
That's not just bad supply lines, is it?
Yeah.
That's a horrifying kind of battlefield economy. It almost suggests the rifle itself, the metal, was seen as more valuable, more permanent than the soldier holding it.
That's a very sharp way to put it. The soldier is temporary housing for the weapon until the next occupant arrives. It's the ultimate de-individualization. And speaking of threats, you had the constant, pervasive danger of snipers. It created this institutional paranoia. Your whole world shrinks down to what you can see through a crack in a wall, always scanning rooftops, windows for that glint of glass.
And this is the breeding ground for legends, right? Like Vasily Zaitsev.
Precisely. Zaitsev, the shepherd from the Urals, the papers claimed he had over 200 confirmed kills. His fame just exploded.
But the sources acknowledge there's debate, right, about his supposed duel with the German Major Koenig, whether that was real or just, propaganda.
Absolutely. Academics still argue about it. Was it manufactured? Was it real?
But maybe the debate is the point. Does it matter if it was true?
For the soldier huddled in the rubble, probably not. The idea of Zaitsev, his reputation, that offered a sliver of hope. It suggested this wasn't just random slaughter, that someone on their side could be surgical, almost mythical, a hero figure. It made it, I suppose, slightly easier to breathe in that environment.
Easier to breathe, maybe? But what did that air taste like? The sources get really specific about the sensory details. Waking up, the first taste in your mouth is brick dust. Not just from nearby rubble, but carried on the wind constantly.
Yeah.
The whole city was pulverized, becoming dust.
And if you can't see the enemy, and you definitely can't retreat, survival becomes about sound and smell. Your world shrinks right down.
Silence becomes dangerous.
And the soundscape they describe, it's everything. You have the unforgettable, terrifying sound of the Stuka dive bombers, that screaming noise as they peel off, turning buildings into, well, confetti. But then, amidst the cacophony, these surreal moments of quiet, hearing German soldiers whispering, maybe in the next building over, 50 meters away.
It's close.
Or the sound, soft and fragile, of a harmonica. Someone playing a simple tune. A guy named Sergei from Severodvinsk is mentioned. And for just a moment, the war holds its breath. Shared humanity in the quiet.
But hanging over all this human desperation, there's always the shadow of political control. Order 227.
Yes. Not a single step back. The absolute order from Stalin himself. Now, the average soldier probably never saw the actual document, but they felt it constantly. There were whispers, rumors, probably truths about NKVD blocking units, secret police positioned behind the Soviet lines.
To do what? Shoot their own retreating soldiers.
That was the implication, or certainly the fear. So the threat from behind could be just as real, just as terrifying as the Germans in front. You were pinned. You had to be there.
When the whole system is built to terrify you, how do you resist? The only way seems to be these tiny private acts, reclaiming some humanity. They talk about finding chalk, pieces of it, and writing on the inside walls of ruins. Sometimes just the date, sometimes the word SDOP, like a mantra against the chaos.
Or a line from Pushkin, incredibly. A scrap of poetry in the dirt. And those small rituals, they were vital. There's this amazing story about finding 3 bottles of industrial disinfectant vodka in a collapsed supply depot. Pure alcohol, basically. They share it. But it's not a party. It's described as solemn, desperate, almost spiritual. And before they drink, they pour a little onto the rubble-strewn ground. Not for God, specifically for the fallen comrades. For Dmitri, one whispered.
Acknowledging the dead. Staying human.
It's a way of saying, we remember, we're still people here, not just numbers.
As the fighting grinds on, survival starts depending on these unexpected skills people bring with them, like the professor, Oleg. He was apparently a math teacher from Leningrad before the war. In Stalingrad, he gives impromptu shooting lessons, basic marksmanship.
But he has this dark quirk, doesn't he?
Yeah, he refuses to sleep, just stays awake, staring. When someone asks why, he says something like, because when I close my eyes, I start counting who is no longer here.
And that's just wow. His old identity, the mathematician, twisted into this grim wartime calculation of loss. It's what keeps him going, in a way. And we see the soldier we're following undergo his own transformation during the fight for Mamayev Kurgan. That hill.
Right, the hellish hill, constantly fought over. This is where he's part of his first real tank assault against panzers, using Molotov cocktails. Just imagine that. Running at a tank with a glass bottle, terrifying, chaotic, but he survives it.
And surviving that specific assault, the source notes, is a turning point for him. It's the first time he feels, quote, truly like a soldier, not just a conscript. He's earned his place through that violence.
But sometimes earning your place meant leaving the surface entirely. To reinforce the Red October factory, another key strategic point, they couldn't move above ground.
Too exposed.
German artillery, snipers everywhere. Moving on the surface was suicide, so they had to go underground. Through the fears. The descriptions are horrific. The smell decay, rust, sewage, and things they couldn't even name. Walking hunched over in freezing, ankle-deep water. Pitch black, mostly. Following whispered signals to avoid areas directly under German positions.
Passing bodies in the dark sometimes. No time to stop, no time for anything. Just keep moving forward through the filth. And this relentless pressure, this environment, it leaves an immediate mark. There's a really poignant moment mentioned, weeks later maybe. He finds a shard of broken mirror in a pile of cement dust, picks it up, sees his own reflection, doesn't recognize himself. The face looking back is haggard, way older, sunken eyes. The city, the battle, has aged him years in just months. He realizes he's older, yes, but definitely not wiser. Just changed.
So when there's finally a lull, maybe a moment to breathe, what's his coping mechanism? It's incredibly private. He creates this personal inventory. Not a letter home. What are the chances of that getting through? No, it's a list. Folded up small, kept inside his boot.
A physical record.
Exactly. A record that he exists right now, today. It lists things like a box of meat, 5 rounds, 1 sock, left foot only. Basic survival items. And then my favorite detail, a raspberry dream. Just that. A memory, a hope, maybe. A tiny spark of something beyond the rubble. Proof of life.
That inventory. It's such a powerful, concrete thing to hold on to against the sheer unreality of Stalingrad. Which brings us to the final thought we wanted to leave you with. It comes from the soldier's friend, said quietly as snow finally starts to fall on the ruins near the end of the battle. He looks around at the devastation and says, sometimes I think the city isn't dead, it's just shedding. Shedding, like skin. So consider this. What does it mean when a place, a city, becomes so brutalized, so utterly saturated with violence and death that it stops being static, that it achieves the state of perpetual conscious shedding, and forces everyone caught within it to become just another temporary layer, soon to be sloughed off?